IA for keeping my IVF journey a secret from my family until I was sure it would work? I'd love to hear your opinion. Before I share my full story, my channel is on its way to hitting 1,000 subscribers and I'd appreciate your help. Please click subscribe and join me on this journey. Your support truly means the world to me and I can't wait to share more interesting stories. I, Emma, 32F. My husband, Daniel, 34M. And I have been trying to conceive for 3 years now. It's been an emotional roller coaster and we've been seeing a specialist for the past 2 years. We've tried everything. Timed conception with stimulated cycles, 1 failed IUI, 2 egg retrievals ERs, 2 failed transfers and a series of tests and treatments for immune issues. Feels like every step forward has been met with 2 steps back. Before I share my full story, my channel is on its way to hitting 1,000 subscribers and I'd appreciate your help. Please click subscribe and join me on this journey. Your support truly means the world to me and I can't wait to share more interesting stories. For context, Daniel and I have always wanted a family. We've been married for 6 years now and from the moment we got together we talked about kids. At first, everything seemed to come so easily for others and I always thought we'd have the same luck. But when we started trying and nothing happened, I quickly realized it wasn't going to be as simple as we thought. After the first year of trying, I went to see a specialist, and that's when the real journey began. I won't go into the exact details of all the IVF treatments we went through because this post would be way too long, but I can tell you that the emotional toll it took on both of us was immense. It's difficult when the whole world seems to be popping out babies so easily, while we're just trying to make it through another IVF cycle. Back to our story. I often see my husband, Daniel, laughing and joking with our nieces and nephews during family weekends. It always warms my heart to watch him play with them, share stories, and engage in those little moments of pure joy. There's something about seeing him interact so naturally with the kids, his sense of humor, his care for them, that made me realize how much he would love to have children of our own. We both dreamed of building a family together, and it was those moments with our nieces and nephews that reaffirmed our decision. Seeing the love he had for them, it was clear that we both wanted this more than anything. That's why my husband and I decided to go for IVF. We knew it would be a long, tough journey, but we couldn't deny the desire to share that kind of love and laughter with our own children. The thought of Daniel as a father, nurturing and having fun with our kids, made my heart swell. Watching him interact with the younger ones made me even more certain that IVF was the right step for us. We didn't want to keep waiting or wondering what it might be like. We wanted to make that dream a reality. So we decided to take the leap, even knowing the challenges ahead. The first IVF cycle. We finally reached the point where IVF was recommended. The first IVF cycle was a whirlwind. So many appointments, injections, and constant testing. It was emotionally draining, but we were hopeful. After the first IVF transfer, I was cautiously optimistic. I didn't want to get my hopes up, but at the same time, I allowed myself to feel the excitement that this might be it. I didn't want to tell anyone too early. Daniel and I live close to both of our families and we see them weekly. I felt like if I told them and it didn't work out, I would have to explain the heartache over and over. I knew it would be hard enough just dealing with it between Daniel and me. So we kept it to ourselves. But as it turned out, the first IVF transfer failed. And even though we were devastated, we promised each other we would keep trying. "We'll try again," I whispered, barely holding back my tears. Daniel was incredibly supportive and he kept saying that as long as we were in this together, it would work out eventually. Now update on the second IVF attempt and struggling with secrecy. The second IVF cycle came around and by this point I was physically and emotionally drained. But I wasn't about to give. This time we were more prepared. We hoped that maybe this time our IVF journey would bring us the family we dreamed of. But it didn't. The second IVF cycle failed as well. After 2 failed IVF cycles, I started questioning everything. Maybe it wasn't meant to be. Maybe we were doing something wrong. Daniel noticed how much I was withdrawing and when he asked, I just shrugged and said, "I don't know, love. It's just too much sometimes." I tried to keep my emotions in check around Daniel, but honestly I felt numb. There was a part of me that didn't want to feel anything anymore because it hurt too much. I started to feel like I was letting him down and that just made everything worse. At this point, I knew I needed some space from my family. Their well-meaning questions like, "When are you going to have kids?" felt like daggers. I didn't want to share the pain, but I also didn't want to keep lying. Daniel and I had decided to keep the next IVF cycle a secret. No one, except for the 2 of us, would know about it until I was ready. Third. IVF cycle and the unthinkable. By the time we reached the third IVF cycle, I was 4 weeks and 4 days pregnant with our third IVF transfer. I had always been hesitant to share any news about the IVF process because of the risk of disappointment. But after everything we'd been through, I felt like maybe, just maybe, this would finally be the one. But then I made a mistake. In a moment of vulnerability, I told my mom about the IVF transfer. I honestly thought it would be okay, that she would understand. But my mom, as much as I love her, can't keep a secret to save her life. And of course she went ahead and told both my siblings. I found out when my brother texted me to wish me luck on my IVF procedure. I had been so careful not to share anything with anyone, but now my whole family knew. My stomach dropped and I immediately felt like I had lost control. My heart was pounding as I tried to gather my thoughts. When I confronted my mom about it, she didn't understand what the big deal was. I just wanted them to pray for. This is second other IVF journey. I, Sarah, a 28-year-old woman, had always envisioned becoming a mother. Like many women, I dreamed of the day when I would hold my child in my arms, creating the perfect family I had always longed for. But the road to motherhood wasn't as simple as I had hoped. For the past year and a half, my husband Mark and I had struggled with infertility. Despite trying various methods, nothing seemed to work. We were left with no choice but to begin our IVF journey, a process that would challenge not only our patience but also our emotional resilience. However, unlike many who choose to keep their IVF struggles private, I made the decision to share every step of the journey with my family, friends, and even colleagues. I believed that being open would help me receive the support I so desperately needed. But what I didn't anticipate was the overwhelming flood of opinions, unsolicited advice, and constant scrutiny that came with my openness. In the spotlight, my every move was being watched, and with each failed cycle the pressure only mounted. Was my decision to share this personal journey the right one? Was it worth the emotional toll? My decision to share my IVF journey was rooted in a desire for connection. I had always been an open book, someone who believed in the power of support and shared experiences. After months of trying to conceive on our own, Mark and I decided to take the plunge and try IVF. As we began this new chapter, I felt it was important to include those closest to me in the process. My friends, my family, and even my colleagues could help me navigate the emotional and physical challenges ahead. At first, my family and friends were supportive. They expressed excitement for us, offering their best wishes and prayers. But soon their enthusiasm turned into something more intrusive. Questions started pouring in. How many eggs did you retrieve? What's the success rate for your age group? When will you know if it's working? While I appreciated their concern, the constant barrage of questions began to wear on me. I just wanted to be able to talk to them about it, I explained to my friend Jessica during one of our many phone calls. I thought it would be nice to have their support, but now it's like I'm constantly explaining myself. They want to know everything and it's exhausting. The emotional burden of having my IVF journey scrutinized by so many people was starting to take its toll. What had initially felt like a supportive network began to feel more like an emotional prison. Each IVF cycle brought new challenges. I had gone through numerous hormone injections, frequent doctor's visits, and uncomfortable procedures. I never imagined that this process would demand so much from me, physically and emotionally. But the strain wasn't just coming from my body, it was also coming from the people around me. One of the hardest parts was dealing with unsolicited advice. My mother, who had experienced her own struggles with pregnancy years ago, often shared her thoughts on what I should do. Have you tried this? What about that? Maybe you should take a break and let your body heal before trying again. Though my mother meant well, I couldn't help but feel like my choices were being questioned. It's not that easy, I would tell her, but the words never seemed to quite get through. Her advice, though well-intentioned, only added to my anxiety. At work, it was no better. My colleagues, many of whom had families of their own, were always eager to ask about my progress. So, when are you going for the next transfer? One of them would ask. Or, I heard the success rate for IVF is lower in your age group. How are you coping with that? The constant reminder of my age, the success rates, and the many factors that could affect my IVF journey created an environment of constant pressure. My work environment, which had once felt like a place of comfort, now became another reminder of my struggles. I was being watched, analyzed, and judged by those who didn't understand the emotional toll IVF could take. As my IVF journey continued, I began to question whether sharing so much of my life with others had been the right decision. The need for privacy grew stronger with each failed cycle, but I felt like I couldn't take a step back. I had already told everyone what was going on, and it seemed impossible to turn back now. The emotional strain of transparency weighed heavily on me. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, trying to balance the need for support with the overwhelming pressure to succeed. Every failed IVF cycle felt like another blow to my spirit, and the added scrutiny from my family and friends only made it harder to cope. I began to retreat inwardly, withdrawing from conversations about my IVF journey. I no longer wanted to hear the questions or the unsolicited advice. All I wanted was peace. I just need space, I confessed to Mark one evening. I don't want to tell anyone about this anymore. I can't handle it. I don't need them watching every step of the process. I just want to focus on us. Mark understood. He had always been my biggest supporter, and he knew how hard it had been for me. He suggested we take a break from discussing IVF with anyone except for our doctor. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. After the second failed IVF cycle, I reached a breaking point. The emotional weight was too much. I had been so open with everyone, thinking it would make my journey easier, but now I felt more isolated than ever. My sense of privacy had been compromised, and I wasn't sure how to move forward. I can't keep doing this, I told Mark as we sat in the living room late one night, discussing our next steps. I need to focus on myself, on us. Maybe it's time to stop telling everyone everything. Mark nodded, understanding the toll it was taking on me. He knew how much I longed for a child, but he also saw the emotional exhaustion in my eyes. It was time to set boundaries. We both agreed that moving forward, we would only share our IVF journey with a small circle of close friends and family members who understood the process. We no longer felt the need to explain every step to everyone. I just need peace, I said softly, my voice breaking. I want to try again, but I need to do it on my own terms. From that moment, Mark and I decided to take control of our IVF journey. We no longer felt obligated to share every detail with the world. We focused on ourselves, our relationship, and our hope for the future. My decision to limit the people I shared my IVF journey with brought an unexpected sense of peace. By cutting out the external noise and setting clear boundaries, I was able to focus on the next cycle with a renewed sense of hope. Without the pressure of constant questioning, unsolicited advice, and the overwhelming spotlight, I felt more empowered than ever. As we prepared for our third IVF cycle, Mark and I knew that the journey wouldn't be easy, but we were ready to face it together. We had learned valuable lessons about the importance of setting boundaries and finding peace in the midst of uncertainty. I also realized that my journey, no matter how public or private, was ultimately my own, and I was entitled to experience it on my own terms. Several months later, I received the news we had been waiting for. The IVF cycle had worked. I was pregnant. It was a moment of pure joy, but it was also a moment of quiet reflection. After everything we had been through, the emotional ups and downs, Mark and I had finally made it. When I shared the news with my family and friends, the reaction was different this time. It wasn't met with questions or pressure, but with genuine love and happiness. They had come to understand that my journey was mine to share, and they respected my decision to take it at my own pace. Looking back on my IVF journey, I realized that while the road had been long and filled with challenges, it had also brought me closer to Mark. It had taught me the importance of setting boundaries, of protecting my emotional well-being, and of finding strength in the quiet moments. My journey was not just about becoming a mother. It was about discovering what mattered most to me, and learning to navigate the complexities of life, love, and fertility on my own terms. And in the end, that was the greatest lesson of all. My IVF journey was challenging, especially with the pressure of sharing it with everyone. The constant scrutiny and unsolicited advice from friends and family took a toll on me, but eventually I learned to set boundaries and prioritize my emotional well-being. After several failed IVF cycles, I finally succeeded, and through it all, I discovered the importance of finding peace on my own terms. Reddit community, what do you think? Has anyone here gone through IVF and dealt with the challenge of sharing the journey with others? How did you balance the need for support with the emotional toll of others' opinions and advice? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Please leave a comment below and share your story. And don't forget to hit subscribe, and thank you so much for your support.